Are you turning objections that don't really exist when doing home improvement sales? After being in this business for over 35 years, one thing that I noticed is that salespeople create more work than they have to when closing home improvement sales. They are the reason sales closing is so hard. They, not the customer, is the biggest obstacle to them making sales. One of the biggest mistakes I see salespeople make in closing is that they turn reactions into objections. Also, if you find these videos helpful, please subscribe, and for more free training, check out the link in the description below. Most home improvement or in-home sales tend to be a one-call close. Even if you have to go back, you still have to learn how to close. Just not as well as if you have multiple visits to do that, but the more you go back and let them think about it, the more of an order taker and the less of a closer you are. Not only that, but every time you go back, you could be seeing someone else. You're costing yourself money by not learning to close home improvement sales. Regardless whichever way you do it, there comes a point after you've done your sales presentation, you price it up and you deliver the price and start the close. Usually it's a variation of, so it's $15,555, and if you fill out the credit app, we can get started. Or it's $15,555, and would you prefer to pay cash or finance if you did this? Well, I'd pay cash. Well, the next step would be for you to get your credit card, ... The point is you deliver the price and start to close by asking for the order. A lot of times the first thing people say is what I call a reaction. For example, they say, wow, that's a lot of money. Or, I didn't know it was going to be this much. Then the typical salesperson starts to say things like, well, don't you think it's worth it? Or we can work with the price. Or, is that too much for you to spend? They're treating the comment/reaction like it's an objection. It's not an objection, it's a reaction. If they said, it's a lot of money, I'm not going to do it, then it would be an objection. If they said, I didn't think it would be this much, and now I'm definitely not going to do it, then it's an objection. They're not saying that. All they're saying is, it's a lot of money. They're not objecting, they're just reacting. They're simply giving you a reaction, and by you trying to deal with or turn it, you're actually turning the reaction into an objection. You are creating the objection. Do you know how many checks or credit cards I've handed over while I'm saying, that's a lot of money, or I didn't know it was going to be this much? Common reaction type statements you hear when you first start to close or deliver the price are, that's a lot of money. I wasn't planning on doing anything today. I didn't know it was going to be this much. I thought it was going to be half this much when I called you. Remember, they're not objecting here, they're just reacting. The best way to handle reaction is not to react to it. Definitely don't question it or try to turn it. Learn the secret power that all great closers learn to use, the power of silence. Learn to be quiet. Most salespeople talk too much in the close. They talk themselves out of the sale. Closing is about asking questions and learning to be quiet. I'm sure you've heard people say that the first person who speaks loses. It's the same thing here. You deliver the price, and after you say the next step would be to fill out the credit app or whatever way you ask for the order, you then have to be quiet until they respond. When they're reacting, it's like they're not really saying anything, and you need to be quiet until they actually give you a real objection or say no. Now, if you have to say something, another option is when they give you the reaction that instead of just being silent, just acknowledge that they said something by saying, I understand, or okay, and then nothing else. Go back to the silence. Here's the difference in how it sounds. So the price is $15,555. And if you start to fill out the credit app here, we can get everything started. Wow, that's a lot of money. Ron, I had no idea it was going to be that much. Well, what did you think it was going to cost? Don't you think it's worth it? Well, actually, I'm not sure because you're the first person we talked to, and on and on and on. In this example, they reacted, and you created the objection, which may or not have been there by responding to it. More often than not, a lot of these would have turned out differently if you handled it like this. So the price is $15,555, and if you start to fill out the credit app, we can get everything started. Wow, Ron, that's a lot of money. I had no idea it was going to be this much. I understand. I thought it was going to be half this amount. And when you first came, I wasn't even planning to do anything tonight. That's fine, I understand. Well, is there any way I could pay half cash and half finance? Sure, here's the credit app for the part you want to finance. So learn to be quiet or just acknowledge the initial reaction you hear when you first start the close after you've delivered the price. A rule of thumb for me is that I'm quiet at this part of the close until they actually give me an objection. Like, I'm not going to do anything right now because I have to think about it. Or it starts to shut down. Do you have a card? Until I hear these type of things, I assume I'm still in the reaction phase and I don't try to turn it or say anything. That way I make sure that what I'm hearing is really an objection and not a reaction. So I'm really quiet, no matter what they say, until it's clearly an objection. Then you're ready to move on to the real closing, which means learning to isolate the objection to the money, figuring out whether the money means affordability or value, close the gap, then ask for the order or create urgency to buy now. There's a lot involved in learning how to one-call close. Start by learning to do this and you'll be on your way. Now, for more information on this, check out the video on how and why to bring it to the money or the playlist on closing home improvement sales listed above. Happy selling!